The room was dim and still, and the candle flame stretched like a wire. The floor hummed like a distant train. Alex Monroe tasted metal and fear. He wanted one thing. He wanted the sound to stop. He wanted proof he was not alone. The air thickened. Shadows slid the wrong way. A bright, cold fire rose and washed the walls white. Alex blinked, but the light did not fade. A tall shape stood where no one had walked. Alex said, "Who is there?" The voice did not use words. It pressed into his chest. It wrote heat under his ribs. It said without sound, "You have been seen." Miriam Cole's number glowed on his phone. He did not touch it. The floor shook once. The light made a ring on the wood. Alex said, "If you are real, speak again." The flame snapped blue. Footsteps did not come. The shape leaned closer. The light went black. Silence held the room like a lid. Alex reached for the wall switch and found nothing changed. He listened hard for the hum, but the air was still. His heart answered in short knocks. He wanted proof this was not in his head. He wanted a way to say help without sounding weak. He put the candle back on the desk. Alex said, "I am not afraid." It was not true. He watched the wick smoke like a thin ghost. Outside, a siren passed and faded. The phone was light in his hand. Miriam Cole would answer at once. She would hear the fear behind his careful tone. He pictured her warm eyes and quiet nod. He did not call. He set the phone down and waited. The desk ticked as it cooled. The room felt wider than before. The silence was a door. It might open or it might not. Morning broke in a dull sheet. Coffee steamed and gave the room a small voice. Alex watched the steam twist like a signal. He wanted to name what happened and make it real. He feared he would sound foolish. He packed his bag and left the door half open. The hallway smelled like dust and old paint. The elevator clicked and stalled, then came alive. On the street, light pooled in rain gutters with no rain. Alex said, "If I was seen, by who?" A bus sighed as it stopped. He saw his face in the smeared glass and looked away. A church bell sounded one time and then stopped. He checked his phone again and typed Miriam, then erased the text. He walked faster. The city moved but did not greet him back. The office lights buzzed like a nest. Alex sat and faced the screen. Lines of text blurred. The hum in the ceiling matched the hum from the night and pushed at his calm. Jonah Reed rolled over in his chair and grinned. Jonah said, "You look like a ghost story." Alex said, "Bad sleep." Jonah shrugged and spun once. The keys clattered a steady beat. Alex opened a blank note and wrote 3 words. "I was seen." He stared at the words. He feared they would change him if he kept them. He feared they would vanish if he closed the file. A calendar alert rang. In 10 minutes, a call with Miriam Cole. He had sent the invite and almost canceled it. He did not cancel it. He watched the minute hand crawl. The conference room smelled like lemon cleaner. Miriam Cole's face warmed the screen. She listened first. She always did. Alex told the facts in plain words. He kept the strange parts close but not hidden. Miriam said, "You are not alone." Her tone did not push. It made a steady floor. Alex said it felt like judgment. Miriam said, or attention. The word hung in the air and asked to be believed. Alex looked at the light on the table and saw a thin ring like the one at home. His hands found each other and held tight. He wanted courage more than answers. The call timer climbed. Miriam said, "Will you seek what it means?" Alex said, "I will try." The screen flickered and steadied. Something tapped the window behind him. Sirens flared and a crowd surged, and Alex felt the city shove him into motion. Heat rose from the pavement. Light stuttered in broken neon. He wanted quiet and got noise. He wanted truth and got chase. A shadow peeled from a glass door and kept pace at his side like a second body. Alex said, "Leave me alone." The shadow did not slow. Steps pounded behind him. Jonah called his name and waved. Breath short. Jonah said, "Stop, talk to me." Alex heard distrust coil in his own voice before he spoke. Alex said, "You told someone." Jonah said, "I tried to help." A train roared on the high track, metal screaming. The shadow stretched and brushed Alex's shoulder. Cold ran through his arm. He flinched and cut left into an alley that smelled like rain and oil. He saw a pale ring on wet concrete, the shape from the night. The ring pulsed once. This was not random. The cathedral side door was cool metal in his palm. Inside, the air felt soft and dim. Street noise thinned to a hush. Candles made small islands of light. Alex sat in the back pew and let his breath slow. He felt the chase in his legs. Fear shook like a trapped bird, and then it rested. Grace slid into the row and did not look at him right away. Grace said, "You ran here." He nodded. She saw too much and pressed nothing. Grace said, "What touched you is not only after you." He wanted to ask what that meant. He swallowed the question. The stained glass threw blue on the floor like water. A thin feather lay on the pew rail. Grace said, "A sign or only a feather? What will you choose?" He almost smiled. Calm had a price. He would pay it. Outside, thunder walked closer. The feather moved without wind. The lights dimmed as if on a single breath. The nave grew longer, the aisles deeper. A pressure rose and settled over the pews like a heavy coat. Alex felt watched and weighed. The white feather darkened at the edges and curled. The air tasted like iron and storm. The hollow gathered itself between candles, not a face but a claim. It did not need doors. It did not need names. Alex said, "You are not truth." The sound fell short, as if the room ate it. The hollow said without mouth, "You will break again and again." It held the aisle like a sealed gate. Grace's hand found his sleeve. Grace said, "Stand." He stood. His knees shook, but they locked. The candles bent toward the thing and then away, obedient. Jonah texted him twice. The screen lit his pocket and went dark. The pew wood creaked like it agreed with the threat. After the storm broke, Miriam met Alex in a side chapel where rain ticked on stone. Time slowed. He spoke and she listened with still eyes. Miriam said, "Fear rushes, wisdom walks." He stared at the votive flames and saw his hands shake. Miriam said, "I have heard that voice. Years ago I hid from it in rooms like this." The truth made the chapel warmer. He felt less alone. Alex said, "It said I will break again." Miriam said, "Breaking is not the end. Refusing to heal is." She traced a small circle in the wax like the ring he saw. Miriam said, "That circle is not a trap. It is a mark you can stand inside." He wanted to believe. He feared the cost. Rain softened to a hush. Miriam said, "There is a door only courage opens." He looked at the side exit. He left by the side door with wet air on his face and a clear pull in his chest. The city shone in puddles. He walked fast, not to flee but to arrive. A plan formed in simple steps. Go home. Face the room. Name the mark. Ask for meaning. He sent Jonah a short message. Alex said, "Meet me." No lies. He sent Grace a pin to his street. He sent Miriam one word. Now. Fear rose and fell like a tide and did not own him. He passed a shuttered shop and saw the silver outline in the glass. He did not look away. He nodded once. Lights flickered on his block. He would open the door and not wait for calm. He would stand in the ring if it came back. He would say the words he was afraid to say. The night seemed to hold its breath for Act 3. Morning quiet settled like a promise. Coffee hissed. The room felt almost kind. Alex opened his door to Jonah, holding a paper bag and a grin too wide. Jonah said fresh donuts. Truce. Calm looked real enough to trust. Alex let him in and the apartment folded into an easy rhythm. They ate, they laughed once, they said small things that sounded safe. Jonah asked careful questions and looked away at the hard parts. Alex missed the first odd glance, caught the second. His phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. He let it pass. The air cooled without reason. Jonah said, "I set up someone you can talk to." "A counselor," he said. The word should have felt good. It felt tilted. Alex said, "Who is it?" Jonah said, "A friend of a friend." The calm cracked. They walked the 2 blocks to a rented office over a pawn shop. Sun found dust in the stairwell. Jonah talked lightly about nothing. Alex heard the effort under the words. Alex said, "Why a friend of a friend?" Jonah said, "Because I care." The answer was true and not complete. At the door, a gold sticker said Suite 3B and a bell chimed when they entered. The room smelled like sage and cold air. A lamp flickered once and steadied. A person in a dark coat waited with a still smile. The smile did not reach the eyes. The stillness felt practiced. Alex said, "Thank you for seeing me." The person said, "I've been expecting you." The simple line rang wrong. He sat anyway. Trust and doubt sat at each shoulder like twins. One nodded, one frowned. The session began with calm words that slid like oil. Questions landed where Alex was weakest. The room seemed to narrow. The counselor's voice had weight that pressed. The hollow said, "You want the circle gone." Alex said, "I want truth." The hollow said, "Truth costs more than you can pay." Jonah kept still, trying to be helpful, trying not to be afraid of what he could not name. Alex felt anger stir, small and hot. He said, "I will not pay with my soul." The hollow smiled without warmth. It spoke of mercy like a deal. It spoke of rest like a trap. The lamp buzzed louder, and the window dimmed as if a cloud knelt on the glass. Control sat in the other chair. Power hid behind soft tone. Alex asked himself if he could stand. The turn came quiet. Jonah touched his phone and the screen threw a brief light on his face. A message to someone waited to send. Alex saw the name and felt the floor tilt. Jonah had reached out hours ago. He had begged for a fix. He had handed the door key to this room. Alex said, "You did this." Jonah said, "I was scared for you." The words landed like broken glass. The hollow stood. The air thinned. The door clicked shut with no hand. The desk lamp went cold and then bright. The hollow said, "Choose ease. Choose me." Alex's chest burned like the first night. Betrayal was not hate. It was fear in a friend's coat. He looked at Jonah, hurt bright and clean. He said nothing. He stood up. Silence fell hard after the words. Jonah looked small and did not try to explain again. Alex felt the hurt settle and then point like a compass. He saw the choice as 2 roads. One was soft and false. One was rough and real. He stepped past the desk and the air pushed back. He kept going. The window brightened as if the cloud lifted. The hollow said, "You will regret this." Regret was a toy it liked to wave. He did not take it. Alex said, "I will face the circle." He reached the door and pulled. It opened. Jonah said, "I am sorry." Alex nodded once and did not turn. He took the stairs fast, each step a beat. Outside, the street noise rose like welcome. He set his path for home, and for the truth waiting there. The apartment held a thin quiet after the stairwell flight. Steam from the street drain slowed and cooled. Light from a weak sun slid across the floor like a slow hand. Alex set his keys down and heard how small the sound was. He thought of Jonah at the landing and felt the sting and the care mixed together. He breathed until the breath stopped shaking. Alex said, "I will not run anymore." The room did not answer, but the silence changed shape. He walked to the desk and saw a faint circle on the wood where the cold fire had been. He traced it once and felt heat under the grain. A memory clicked in place. The circle was not a trap. It was a summons. The idea startled him and calmed him in the same beat. The scent of lemon cleaner opened a door in his mind, and the chapel rose inside him. Candle heat touched his face, though he stood at home. Rain on stone echoed under the quiet. He saw Miriam years younger, her hands raw with grief, hiding in a pew as if it were a harbor. Miriam said, "I wanted the voice to stop." The memory used his mouth and his breath. He saw Grace in a room with no windows, a bottle on the floor, a prayer written on a napkin. Grace said, "If anyone sees me, let it be mercy." The past braided with the present and tugged. Alex smelled old wax, though no candle burned. He heard the night train that never passed here. He understood the call began long before the white flame. The first mark was need, not punishment. He stood in the room's center and faced the desk as if it could answer. His heart beat a slow, deep drum. The air thickened, then cleared. Alex said, "If you are the one who saw me, come." The word "come" left his mouth and felt heavier than breath. He waited and did not blink. Silence stretched until it hummed. Then the silver outline rose at the edge of sight, not threatening, only present. Alex said, "Tell me what I am avoiding." The answer was not a voice, but a pressure under the ribs. It pushed him toward the ring. He stepped into it and felt the floor hold him harder, as if claiming weight. The purpose landed like a drop of iron in water. He had to speak the night he had buried. The room cooled and then warmed, like breath passing through it. A figure took shape with light running its edges. Seraph said, "What you fear is not me." The words were soft and exact. Alex swallowed and kept his stance. Seraph said, "The hollow feeds on your refusal to be seen." The line undid a knot inside him. He thought of Jonah's secret call. He thought of Grace choosing honesty over pride. Seraph said, "Mercy is not a bargain. Mercy is a door." The floor seemed newly level under his feet. Alex said, "Then why the ring?" Seraph said, "It marks where you stop hiding from yourself." The thought did not flatter or condemn. It cut straight and clean. He looked down and did not step out. Tears came without drama and cooled his face. He let them fall and did not rush to wipe them. Alex said, "So this was the truth all along." The words left no echo and needed none. He felt the shape of his life change, not by force, but by consent. The loss inside him did not vanish. It loosened its grip. He thought of Miriam's circle in wax. He thought of Jonah's fear trying to help. He thought of Grace choosing to be known. Alex said, "I accept being seen." The room seemed to breathe with him. Outside, a train passed, and the sound did not sting. He stepped out of the ring not to escape it, but to carry it with him. The night leaned toward a fight he would not avoid. The corridor to the old bedroom felt longer than before. Air held that charged stillness before a storm breaks. Alex heard his own steps and the small drag of denim at his knee. The bulb in the hall flickered once, twice, then steadied. He placed his hand on the door and felt a low vibration under paint. Alex said, "I am here." Breath moved in slow counts. The room beyond was dark and waiting. The ring on the floor would either glow or stay dead. He knew the fight was not outside. It was in the choice to stand or fold. He opened the door and the heat rose from the wood like breath from a beast. He stepped inside and did not look away. Silence crouched. Impact waited. The light came in a thin circle and widened. The hollow stood where the desk had been. It did not need furniture. It needed ground. The air carried iron and old rain. The floorboards sighed like a held breath. The hollow said, "Choose ease. Choose forget." Alex said, "I choose truth." The words shook and held. The figure swelled, edges hot, then cold. Alex felt fear rise and pass like a wave. He remembered Seraph's line about doors. He set his feet and raised his chin. The room pulsed once hard, and the window rattled. He did not flinch. The fight began without a step taken. Wind pressed the glass and then fell still. The door behind Alex opened a crack. Miriam stood there, soaked from a sudden rain, eyes steady. She did not cross the ring. Miriam said, "Stand and speak." Her voice was a rope across water. The hollow hissed without sound. Alex said, "I was there the night it ended, and I ran from the memory." The room quieted around the sentence. Miriam smiled once, small and proud. The window flared white and went calm. In that hush he felt the cost. He could not keep the old shield and win. He had to lose hiding to gain peace. He said, "I release the shame." The words hurt and healed in the same second. The hollow surged, taller, colder, trying to blot him out. Shadows climbed like fire in reverse. Alex felt the push but did not step back. Alex said, "You are not my judge." The line struck like a bell. The figure faltered and warped. Grace arrived breathless and froze in the hall light. Grace said, "You are not alone." The words lanced the dark. The floor shook once, hard. Alex lifted his hands not to strike, but to refuse the lie. He named the night again, slower and clear. He forgave himself as if handing back a weight. The hollow split down the center like fog under sun, and then gathered itself for one last rush. Silence fell with a depth that felt like earth after rain. The ring dimmed to a memory. The hollow thinned to a shadow, and slipped under the bed like dust, and was gone. Alex stood until the shake left his legs. He looked at Miriam and Grace, and did not speak first. The quiet said what words could not. Miriam said, "You chose truth." Grace said, "And you stayed." Alex nodded and let the breath leave slow. He walked to the window and opened it. Night air moved across his face and did not taste like iron. He turned back to the room that had held his fear. He smiled, small and real. The future stepped closer, and he did not step away. Dawn held the room in a pale hush. The ring on the floor was only a faint stain now. Smoke from last night's candle thinned and drifted, then vanished near the window seam. The city breathed soft in the distance. Alex let his chest follow that calm rhythm. He stood where fear had stood and found space instead. He touched the desk and felt cool wood. He listened for the hum and heard only a clock tick and a bird testing morning. He wanted to speak, but silence said enough. The night had taken something and given something else. He thought of the cost like a bill laid open. He did not look away from it. Alex said, "I will live with what remains." The words did not shake. He saw what was missing as a clean edge. He would not pretend it was not gone. He washed his face and watched the water carry soot in thin threads. A flash of the fight flickered behind his eyes, then softened. He remembered the door clicking shut, the lamp flare, the line he chose not to cross. Relief came like a slow wave, then guilt tugged at the edge. He let both be true. Alex said, "I wanted easy." The mirror gave no answer, only a steadier look. He saw the man who ran and the one who stayed. He felt grace like a hand he did not earn and still received. The hallway smelled like coffee and damp stone. He saw Miriam smile inside the quiet. He heard Grace say, "You are not alone," and the words stayed warm. Outside, traffic returned in soft patches. The day would move without asking him first. He would move with it, but not the same. He stepped into the kitchen and found the feather from the nave on the windowsill. It should not have been there. It was light as breath and bright against the dull frame. Time slowed until the kettle tick felt distant. Grace's laugh echoed once from another day, then faded sweet and clean. He held the feather between two fingers. He thought of the bottle on the floor in her memory, and the prayer on a napkin. Grace said, "If anyone sees me, let it be mercy," he whispered. "I see you." The room answered with soft heat from the rising sun. He set the feather near the ring on the table and closed his eyes. Forgiveness moved through him like air finding an open path. He did not clutch it, he let it pass and stay. The ache loosened, not gone, but gentler. Later, the chapel doors were opened to a slower day. Candles trembled as people moved and settled. Miriam waited near the side rail where wax pooled. She did not rush to speak. Alex stood beside her and let the old stone give him weight. Miriam said, "What we fought does not vanish. It loses its seat." The words felt like a hand steadying his back. He remembered her tracing a circle in cooled wax. He saw that simple motion as a promise held without noise. Alex said, "I kept standing." Miriam's eyes shone, then cleared. She said, "You learned where to stand." He could hear time in her voice. A bell rang once and rested. He felt the lesson fit the day. A tear rose, small and honest. He did not hide it. He let it mark the moment and fall. By evening, he walked the block to his door without checking each window. Puddles held thin skies and street lamps made clean halos. He carried no plan other than to live the truth he spoke. He unlocked the apartment and left the door open to fresh air. He set the phone on the table and typed 3 names. Jonah, Grace, Miriam. He wrote few words and meant all of them. He placed the feather on the shelf above the desk, beside the faint ring like a map. Alex said, "I will keep choosing the circle." The line felt like breath, not armor. Quiet filled the room and did not judge him. He stood in that quiet until it felt like home again. Night leaned in, soft and clear. Act 7 waited like a horizon he could walk toward. Morning returned without ceremony. The city stretched and yawned, and birds stitched small notes into the air. The window stood open to a mild breeze. Alex sat at the desk and held the quiet like a cup. He named what was gone and did not press for its return. Grief sat near his left shoulder, lighter than before. Peace took the right and did not demand attention. He let them share the space and did not rush them out. Alex said, "We made it through." The line was for him and for those who stood with him. He watched dust drift like slow snow. He understood that no scene repeats, even when rooms do. He felt the question rise like a tide at rest. Was it worth it? The room carried the question and did not crack. He gathered the papers that held his fear in old lines and set them in a neat stack. He read one sentence and exhaled. Then he fed the page to a small metal shredder and listened to the clean whir. He moved steady, not angry. The act was a walk, not a sprint. Memory stayed. False weight left. Alex said, "Thank you for what you taught and for what you are not." The bin filled with thin ribbons like pale rain. He wiped the desk and felt the grain under his palm. He opened the door and let hallway sounds weave with his breath. He stepped outside and pulled it closed behind him. The latch clicked like a quiet promise. He took the stairs with a light step and did not look back. On the sidewalk, he paused at the church fence and found a small envelope tucked between rails, his name in simple ink. Inside, a folded note in Miriam's hand. He read while traffic breathed around him. Miriam said, "Truth is not a weapon. It is a light. Stand near it when you can. Carry it when you must." The line felt older than the paper. He saw her years burning quietly and meaning it. He placed the note in his jacket and stood still 1 beat longer. The wind lifted the edge of the letter and set it down again. He understood the theme without needing more words. He was not saved from pain. He was taught where to place it. He nodded at the fence and moved on. Afternoon found him on a bench where the street opened to a small square. People crossed with their own stories. A child laughed. A dog tugged a leash. A bus sighed and left. Time loosened its grip and let life happen. Alex watched and let the day teach him the simple lesson of motion. He did not need to hold it all. He needed to stand inside what was given now. A vendor waved and he waved back. He bought water and felt how ordinary grace can be. Alex said, "Thank you" to no one in sight, and meant it. The sun shifted toward evening and warmed the brick. He felt the world move on and include him again. Change sat beside him and did not crowd. He returned home near dusk and stood in the doorway. The room he feared now felt simple and alive. He looked at the ring, at the feather, at the quiet that had learned his name. He placed his hand on the desk and let the grain press his skin. He did not ask for a sign. He did not test the air. Alex said, "I am seen." The words were small and complete. They did not echo. They did not need to. He closed the window, then opened it again, and smiled at the choice. Night gathered gently at the edges and did not threaten. He sat, breathed, and let the final truth settle like clean rain. Truth must never be owned. It is held and shared, or it fades.